2025 has been an outstanding year for video games so far, with the likes of Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Death Stranding 2, Blueprints, and many more. The Game of the Year conversation is absolutely packed, and yet we're only halfway through the year, with a shed load of exciting games waiting to be released over the next 6 or so months. Though our list contains its fair share of long-awaited franchise sequels, not everything here belongs to an existing IP. There are promising new games which could well kickstart their own series, alongside pure indie one-offs that could dominate come award season. Whether you're craving the next AAA behemoth to showcase your hardware of choice or a more low-budget banger, I'm Scott from WhatCulture.com, and these are the 10 most anticipated video games still to come in 2025.
It's more important than ever to get yourself a VPN. With NordVPN, you can protect your data and keep up with region-locked TV and content. Best of all, you can get signed up for 2 years of Nord with an up to 76% discount and 4 months off, plus a $50 Amazon gift card. All you have to do is click the link below or scan the QR code on screen now to make the most of this great deal.
Number 10. Borderlands 4. The fourth entry into Gearbox's beloved looter-shooter franchise shifts the action to the new planet of Kairos and focuses on a largely new cast of Vault Hunters who will do battle with the tyrannical dictator known as the Timekeeper. Though the nuts and bolts of Borderlands 4's gameplay are very much what we know, Gearbox has promised that this will be the biggest and most open-ended Borderlands game to date. Most impressively, they're also touting a seamless experience where Kairos's 4 zones can be explored without any loading screens at all. In addition to more comprehensive vehicular options such as the ability to spawn cars at will, players will also now have a grappling hook to fling themselves around. And as will surely be a considerable relief to many, the developer has vowed to cut back on the edgy toilet humor which some fans felt reached an exhausting amount in Borderlands 3. Gearbox is certainly saying all the right things, so hopefully it'll transpire that this sequel well and truly pushes the franchise forward. Borderlands 4 releases on September 12th. Number 9. Mafia: The Old Country. Hell yes, just hell yes, it has been almost a full decade since Mafia 3, so to call Mafia: The Old Country long overdue is quite the understatement. Honestly, this thing just looks so cool. This new entry is a prequel set in early 1900s Sicily, revolving around protagonist Enzo Favara, from his beginnings as a child slave to joining the ranks of the Torrisi crime family. The Old Country is also more of a linear cinematic action game in line with the first 2 Mafia titles, ditching the expansive open world of Mafia 3. This is also reflected in a mid-range $50 price tag, seeming to suggest that it'll offer a shorter, more streamlined story campaign, which in a sea of AAA open world bloat will hopefully be pretty refreshing. While it doesn't seem to be reinventing the wheel from a gameplay perspective, as a throwback to a simpler era for glossy action-adventure games, Mafia: The Old Country looks poised to deliver focused thrills that won't monopolize your precious free time. Mafia: The Old Country releases on August 8th. Number 8. Hell Is Us. Now for a fantastic-looking new game that's an entirely original IP, even if its aesthetic and gameplay influences absolutely speak for themselves. Hell Is Us is a third-person action-adventure set in the war-torn country of Hedea, as UN peacekeeper Remy abandons his post to seek out his missing parents. As he traverses a post-apocalyptic semi-open world, Remy will face off against the supernatural entities called Hollow Walkers. The game has been relentlessly compared to both Death Stranding and Dark Souls, and you'd need only watch a few seconds of gameplay to appreciate why. Intriguingly though, Hell Is Us will distinguish itself with a minimal HUD, lack of map and compass, and all-round refusal to hold your hand. You'll be left to study the world and its environmental cues to figure out where to go next. This is a game that clearly drips atmosphere from every pore, and if it lives up to the hype, could very well be one of 2025's most acclaimed, truly original titles. Hell Is Us releases on September 4th. Number 7. Pokémon Legends ZA. After the undeniable disappointment of the stuttery Pokémon Scarlet and Violet in 2022, it's fitting that developer Game Freak opted to follow up with a spiritual successor to Pokémon Legends Arceus, which was released the very same year but far better received. Honestly, it's one of my favorites across the last decade or so. Pokémon Legends ZA will also be the franchise's first foray on the Nintendo Switch 2, while still being available on the OG Switch. The story takes place entirely within the Paris-inspired Lumio City, which was first introduced in 2013's Pokémon X and Y, as the city is in the midst of a comprehensive urban redevelopment project. Perhaps the biggest gameplay change in ZA is the addition of real-time combat, ditching the traditional turn-based style to allow both trainers and Pokémon to move around the battle area at will. Game Freak has also teased other unprecedented changes to combat, where positioning and timing are crucial for success, ensuring that battling will finally feel more strategic than it has in the past 2 decades plus. Pokémon Legends ZA releases on October 16th. Number 6. The Outer Worlds 2. Obsidian Entertainment's The Outer Worlds didn't exactly set the world alight when it released in 2019, but it was nevertheless a solid action RPG which carried the developers' Fallout New Vegas vibes forward with a firm foundation for a much improved sequel. The Outer Worlds 2 then honestly looks like a tectonic leap from its predecessor, whisking players away to a new solar system for a standalone adventure with heavily refined gunplay, traversal, and customization. Despite its very serious overhaul and Obsidian's promises of a darker story, however, The Outer Worlds 2 is still a fundamentally silly game, perhaps best exemplified by a hilariously twisted trait system. For example, the Bad Knees perk allows you to move faster, but at the expense of making your knees pop loudly every time you stand up, potentially alerting nearby enemies. That's the level of stupid players should expect, and if Obsidian can maintain that tone while ironing out the first game's rough edges, this could be one of the most improved sequels of modern times. The Outer Worlds 2 releases on October 29th. Number 5. Baby Steps. Baby Steps is a physics-based walking sim where players take control of Nate, a total schlub who learns to put one foot in front of the other as he's transported to a strange land and tasked with summiting a mountain in the distance. The game's challenge comes from having to precisely control each of Nate's steps throughout his journey. Turning even basic traversal into a puzzle, failure is typically a slapstick-style pratfall. Despite its thoroughly tongue-in-cheek tone, this is a genuinely gorgeous-looking game that seems to boast all the wit you'd expect from co-developer Bennett Foddy, responsible for the eccentric cult classic Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy. Plus, where else can you play a game that has its own bespoke, fully dynamic onesie soilage system? For anyone still craving airy open-world exploration in the wake of Death Stranding 2 on the beach, Baby Steps looks like a suitably bizarre companion piece. What it lacks in AAA bombast, it more than compensates for with sheer unrelenting absurdity. Baby Steps releases on September 8th. Number 4. Ghost of Yotei. Though its gameplay was fairly familiar, Ghost of Tsushima nevertheless offered up one of the most striking and lived-in open worlds of the last 5 years. Hopefully, Ghost of Yotei can deliver an improved iterative sequel. This is a standalone follow-up set more than 300 years after the first game, with new protagonist Atsu seeking revenge on a group of outlaws known as the Yotei 6, who killed her family and destroyed her home 16 years prior. From what we've seen so far, Ghost of Yotei appears to be cut from very much the same cloth as its predecessor, with an emphasis on stealth, combat, and exploration in an eye-wateringly beautiful open-world Japan. There are a few neat changes as well. This time around, the main quest structure is totally open-ended, allowing you to take on each of the Yotei 6 in any order you please, with Atsu joined by a wolf companion who can assist during combat. Considering the popularity of the original game, this is certainly a sequel that's likely to be an incremental, kinda more of the same follow-up, but in a way that leaves fans very happy. Ghost of Yotei releases on October 2nd. Number 3. Mixtape. Beethoven and Dinosaur, the developers behind The Artful Escape, return with Mixtape, a music-centric coming-of-age adventure set in 1990s America, following 3 friends on their last night together. The game is presented as a musical mixtape as players experience the group's most powerful memories, envisioned here through a series of diverse vignettes ranging from skateboarding levels to flying and baseball minigames. And it's not unfair to assume that a major chunk of the game's budget was spent on its all-timer collection of banger tracks, from the likes of Devo, Roxy Music, Lush, The Smashing Pumpkins, Iggy Pop, Susie and the Banshees, Joy Division, and The Cure. On top of all this, it's absolutely gorgeous, rocking a painterly aesthetic and stop-motion style that's all the rage right now. If you're sorely missing the vibe of the Life is Strange games, Mixtape looks like it'll fill the void for a considerable amount of time. Mixtape is set to release later in 2025. Number 2. Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Metroid fans have had one hell of a long wait for a 4th Metroid Prime, given that Metroid Prime 3 Corruption released all the way back in 2007. But Beyond is finally almost here, a 2 decades in the making sequel that'll also be Samus Aran's first outing on the shiny Nintendo Switch 2 hardware. Samus Aran's first outing on the shiny Nintendo Switch 2 hardware, whilst also releasing on the OG Switch. Beyond sees Samus once again fighting for her survival against untold alien dangers, this time on the planet Vuros. But the big juicy hook this time around is that Samus now has psychic abilities, which she can use to operate mechanisms around the environment. It's a neat trick for the franchise, even though for the most part Beyond appears to be a prettier, slicker version of the tried and true 3D Metroid gameplay we all know and love. Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is set to release later in 2025. And number 1. Hollow Knight Silksong. There are few video game sequels more agonizingly anticipated than Hollow Knight Silksong, a follow-up to 2017's all-timer Metroidvania, Hollow Knight. Team Cherry first announced Silksong way back in 2019, and though it was originally planned to be just a DLC for the original game, its scope grew enough that it ultimately morphed into a full-fat sequel. The small development team has promised a bigger follow-up with more than double the first game's checkpoint benches, 165 unique enemy types, and deeper, richer side quests. This time around, players will take control of the first game's support character, Hornet, allowing for more acrobatic maneuvering in both exploration and combat. Everything we've seen from Silksong so far suggests it's going to be just as gorgeous and brilliantly infuriating as its predecessor, hence why the wait to finally get a release date has left the fanbase so confused. Considering that the core dev team consists of just 3 people, it's understandable why Silksong has been in the oven for so long. Hopefully it's worth it in the end. Hollow Knight Silksong is set to release sometime later in 2025. Maybe if we all keep our fingers crossed, that'll actually come true. And those are our picks for the most anticipated video games still to come in 2025. Shout out some favorites down in the comments below and let me know if I missed anything along the way. For now, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you soon.